Good evening and welcome to Crosstalk. My name is Rev.Tom Otieno. Now, the protests are going on, and as they go on, we are noticing that the police are coming into conflict with protesters. And as they do that, we have seen scenes that are friendly, but unfortunately, we have also seen some very deadly scenes where people have died, people have been injured, tear gas has been lobbed. What exactly is going on? Today, we want to talk about the balance between humanity and human rights. What's going on here? I have a very interesting panel. Edward Mbanya from Amnesty International. Thank you for coming to join us.
Thank you for having me here.
And we have Maliba Arnold, Strategic Comms, UDA. And perhaps I should start with you, Edward, being a champion for human rights, to ask, what in your view is going on?
I think we're in a special moment right now, and we're in a moment of change, and the citizens have decided to take back their power. They have had enough of what I think they term as oppression. And they have decided to take back the power that they've given to the political class. As much as they have tried to act within the Constitution, we've seen a darker side, where we've seen the government deploying the police, and we've seen the darker side of this government. And it doesn't seem to stop. It's still going on. And for me, that's a summary of what we have seen.
Well, Arnold Maliba.
Literally, it's a little bit of not a very easy time to actually be out here speaking for government, because in times of national shaking, responsibility barely lies on the shoulders of government, and them that appear and speak for government a lot of times do not appear like they are saying the truth, even when they are saying the truth. But be that as it may, we enjoy a very robust Bill of Rights as a country in our Constitution 2010. But even as we do civic education and engagement out there, one of those things that we really need to speak to people repeatedly, that all rights are not equal. There are absolute rights, and there are those that are non-absolute. And that rights are not just individual, they are also communal. And that as you enjoy them, you do not deprive others of their own rights. And that even as we enjoy of rights, we should also be careful to also remember that we are a communal group of, that's where humanity comes in. Literally, all of us are concerned with the situation in the country. All of us. That's no doubt. Then, of course, there are those who are courageous enough to go out and speak about it. It is their right. There are also others whose rights, for example, have actually been trampled on as people exercise their own rights. Then, of course, there are mistakes that have been done by the state. We do not have very flowery words for that. They must be called for what they are. They are mistakes, deadly as they are. Violations, if you like to call them. And we have got competent agencies, both within government and even outside, to actually take care of that. So I do not think that at any particular point, the government and the state have actually glossed over the mistakes that have been there. Right to life is one of those that are actually absolute. And that there is no reason why one should be denied the right to life. So we should not then go out there and just splash out numbers and talk about numbers. They are not statistics. They are rights that are absolute. So when that actually happens, we actually have to actually then speak about it.
Where's the breakdown?
When you have police abducting people in the name of arrests, yet there's a law that guides how arrests should be conducted. You have the National Police Service Act. You have the National Police Service Standing Orders that says how a procedure of an arrest should be conducted. But people are being abducted in the name of arrests. When you have people disappearing and ending up dead, that is when it all breaks down.
You want to blame the police. Fair enough. The police become the whipping boys for this particular conversation. But let me ask this. When we saw people going to parliament, was that a protest or a demonstration? When we saw arsonists burning, you know, on the human rights side, and fair enough, they should be doing what they're doing. They are very loud on the rights of the civilians. Fair, that is their business, and that is their forte. But very low, almost silent, on the rights of those who actually are trampled upon by the protesters, for example. No one has spoken for the businesses that have been looted and burned, except for government, and those of us who speak and work with government. The place of the police in this is not to allow people to actually have their rights at the expense of other people's rights. It is at that particular conflation, that particular point, that flashpoint that actually causes the problem. Because the police officers have got orders, you don't go beyond this, for strategic reasons. But then along the way, and all of us have done, if you've done demonstrations, you know that there is always that, number one, the overzealous type. Number two, there's always infiltration. So if the leadership of the organizers do not take charge of that particular process, then the police realize that these borders on violating Article 37 and therefore intervene.
I want to ask you to speak to abductions.
Yes.
We've seen a very clear, caught on camera, Macharia Gaitho, veteran journalists, abducted in a police station.
Yes.
So even if one says all the others are debatable, the one for Macharia Gaitho was very clear and was done in a police station. And he was forcibly, thrust into a vehicle. The police have taken responsibility. But in the procedures of arrest, was that an arrest or an abduction, and why does that become necessary?
There's too much over dramatization. That dramatic arrests and capturing people, making it look like, they are fighting terrorists and very dangerous people, when all we actually are arresting are people who have done a tweet, people who have made noise in the streets. That is not how we should be going about it. DCI needs to actually review their standard operating procedures so that then, look at this, at a time when the country is quite tensed up, when you dramatize arrests, you are polarizing it. And you are giving the people who want to spin content to polarize the state. So that, again, is not something we really need to actually belabor and speak about for so much. We need to call out the police and tell them to review how to go about this. So the police must know that their job is a zero-fail mission. Police officers must not have anything called a bad day in the office. Because when they have got that thing you will call a bad day in the office, it could mean somebody's life is actually taken away.
Died.
Yeah, so for them, it is a zero-fail mission type of work, and they must do their work well. They would rather be slow, but proper. So even as they do their work, we must actually tell them, do your work. We will support you, but do your work well.
Edward, you need to respond. And as you respond, I want you to speak to the rights of business people whose properties have been violated. Have the human rights agencies been as loud on that? But also speak to the entire conduct of the police. In your view, what's going on?
Okay, I disagree with my colleague here in terms of standards. Standards are there for arrest. These standards are found in the National Police Service Act, in the schedules that follow, in the National Police Service Standing Orders, and in the Constitution.
Please educate us. What are these standards?
So these standards are...
If somebody comes to you...
First of all...
And says...
Yes.
What are they supposed to do?
So first of all, a police officer should be wearing their badge number.
Okay.
Okay. It should
Even
not be
with
concealed.
plainclothes police?
For the plainclothes police, now must identify themselves. Even the ones with the badge numbers must identify themselves. Who they are.
So they produce an ID?
They produce an ID. And after that, they must tell you whether they are interrogating you or whether they are arresting you. And if they are arresting you, they must give you the reasons why they are arresting you. Okay? And from there, they must ask you to follow them. Okay? It's not an issue of them now abducting you.
They're not going to bundle you into a vehicle.
Yes,
forcefully.
Because if they've told you all that and you've been agreeable to follow them, why should they bundle you into the car? You're getting? Those are the standards that's the law. Okay?
But can I ask something just before you go very far? Honestly, realistically, because this is an operational issue, and being an operational issue, the variables cannot be as descriptive as a bill would be, unless you come up with a very descriptive bill. And every time you do a very descriptive legislation, it fails the purpose. Let me ask him. I'm actually opposed to arresting bloggers dramatically. I'm actually very opposed to looking for a protester like you are looking for a terrorist. But I just wanted to ask, that standard you've actually just spoken about, the lines you've actually spoken about, the SOP, do you really think if you were to tell us, a terrorist, okay, now I am so-and-so, I have come to arrest you, follow me. The terrorists will go with you. They wouldn't. A lot of robbers, for example, robbers. So that is why when we speak about this thing, can we unbundle them so that then we call out police? That see, this is a civil issue, right?
But what he's speaking to is the law.
Can I be allowed to finish here? You've interrupted before I'm done.
Yeah.
So that's basically the law. Yeah. The law also allows police to actually intervene and arrest somebody in the cause of committing a crime. The cause of committing a crime. Okay.
What does the law say about people resisting arrest?
Now, when people resist arrest
or refuse to follow,
yes, and this I will tell you, this is under the National Police Service Act, Schedule 6. It says that they're allowed to use force, but that force must be proportionate and reasonable to the resisting of arrest. It cannot be unproportional. There's even court judgments speaking on the same. Okay, so if a person refuses to be arrested, he's unarmed. Why would you shoot him with an AK-47? Not reasonable.
Not reasonable.
Even if the person had a panga, the court has held that if a person had a panga and the person was resisting arrest and you shot him, that is unreasonable force. There are very many judgments on that particular issue of panga.
Okay.
Okay? So the idea is it has to be reasonable. And the question I would ask, when you see people being shot by police, we've seen these pictures in the media, intentionally being shot, they have done nothing. They're just standing. And they're protesters or demonstrators. Is that force reasonable? Have they even been given a chance to surrender themselves?
You can speak to that one.
I have not seen police officers using live ammunition deliberately targeted towards protesters. What I have seen is that I have seen with my eyes a police officer shooting a tear gas canister that for me I felt that was unnecessary to journalists, that I saw. But then for the bullets that I've actually seen go out, or rather whatever has been reported, none of us has actually those zoom cameras that can actually tell how bullets would move around. But I would actually want to look at the ballistic reports that actually then define all those shots that have actually happened. Number one, there is the issue of training. We cannot keep on having places where police, or rather instances where the police, in using where they should be shooting upwards, they end up shooting people. Those, we cannot justify that. Like I said, the police work must actually be treated as a zero-fail mission. Because if you say you had, okay, I shot by mistake, I can write a note here, I can misspeak. We are on set, right? So we can talk about take two. But imagine, do you have a take two for a bullet? You don't have that. So what I am saying is that as we speak about this, some of these things are systemic. Like, for example, why would we have police officers unnecessarily being aggressive? And then we've also seen them doing their work. Not that we really have to thank them for doing their work well. That is their work. So what I do not want to buy into is that it is a policy or it is a decision or there is a command decision to that. Because I saw, for example, the unfortunate shooting in Nakuru. I see the video, and as the officers get around there, probably we really need to do a lot of pacing through our officers in training over and over again, because sometimes we see very good professionalism. And then another time we just see below standard.
Horrendous things.
Yeah.
Now, you are taking us through the law, so I'll allow you just 1 minute before we take the break to wrap up on the procedures of arrest and things like that as you educate us. Yeah, so and then we speak into this situation when we come back from the break.
Yes.
So just give us a little bit.
So a procedure of what would happen to Macharia Gaido cannot be an arrest. That was an abduction. Nobody identified themselves to him. Nobody told him they were arresting him. And even in a police station, and my question I would ask, why would you in a police station bundle him into a private car with private plates? And he has talked about that there's no policy decision on this. The standards that have been set up by the Police Service Act and the service standing orders state that the policeman must be wearing his official uniform. Okay?
To arrest?
Yes. Even in riot situations, the riot codes require them to be uniformed. not plain clothes. Otherwise, how do you tell between the plain clothes and the uniformed police enforcers? Okay. Secondly, you've seen a new trend in these protests where police officers are hiding their faces, concealing their faces. And it's all board. Everywhere you go, the police officers who were policing those demonstrations were hooded, or they were wearing balaclavas. We had the same trend with the people being abducted by hooded people. We've looked at the vehicles being used in those particular operations.
The Subarus.
The Subarus, the Land Cruisers, even in the protests. The number plates were removed. Are we together? That looks like a deliberate move to me.
Let's leave it there.
Yes.
Let's go to a break. Let's go to a break. Don't forget what you're going to say, Maliba. We're taking a break. And we want to come back and speak into this issue, including what we've seen as outcomes. This is Crosstalk. Please, don't leave. We'll be right back.
We are living in a lost and broken world, constantly bombarded by messages of hate and atrocities. But with God, we can overcome. Find hope and restoration on the go through life-changing shows on the Family Media app.
And then you will lose yourself and gain the world. And Jesus said, what good is it?
Get to stream Family TV and Family Radio straight from your phone. Catch up on a show you missed or create video streaming playlists by saving and watching videos from our huge variety of shows at your own convenience. Download the Family Media app, available for all Android and iOS users on the Google Play Store and Apple Store respectively. Family Media, keeping Jesus on the airwaves.
Welcome back to Crosstalk. We are talking the balance between human rights and humanity, law enforcement, protesting. How do we manage this space? We went into the break. Arnold, you are itching to. Maliba, you are itching to.
No, I just wanted to speak to some of the issues he's raised.
Yes.
Again, I'll look at them as operational details. The MO of the police on how the DCI are working, for example, specifically the unit that we're talking about here is DCI, right? And the nature of their work, for example, I know when he speaks about people going out to demonstrations, the officers should be uniformed. We've seen that. We've also seen officers who are in plain clothes mingling with people, and that is an old standard process across the world. Sometimes that is how then they are able to actually stop, detect, and do that. On black cover and stuff, there's a retribution. I know there's a reason why they're doing that. No one is doing that because out of mischief. There have been consequences to officers. Now, let's speak to this. For example, who is going to speak to the violation of human rights? Like our data has actually been put out there. Police officers' data, personal staff, their families who also have got their own rights have actually been splashed out there. So one of that conversation we need to have once normalcy returns is the understanding, the intersection of where our rights and others actually work out. Because if you have got the discretion, for example, to get extra constitutional in defending your right, then those of us who feel targeted also then, out of natural justice, will opt to also go extra constitutional to defend that. And that is where anarchy comes in. So
what I would ask is, why would the police introduce covert operations into an overt, operation? Because demonstration protests are overt. You are dealing with not combatants, you're dealing with civilians who you can see. Why would they come in disguised as protesters or in plain clothes?
I don't know, Reverend.
Where would they do that?
I don't know why when we talk about demonstrations, we love to argue in a very linear way. We love to look at them in a very linear way.
Flip it up for us.
Knowing too well that demonstrations by nature are supposed to cause a little bit of discomfort. That's the truth. That's the reason why they actually are out there, that voice, all of us can speak, but that voice should be a little bit irritating to get to those who, at that particular point, are assumed to be tone deaf or are not getting it. So there's the mischief part of it. Then there's the infiltration by criminals. So at strategy level, you will not argue that when the police officers use some of these tactics, they seem to work. The only departure point for me with the police and how they actually are doing it is when it gets to places where rights are actually violated, especially absolute rights.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very well. Respond to this, please.
Yeah. So
Edward.
for us at Amnesty, we are very concerned with police concealing their identities, which is against the law, first of all. Secondly, the question that we need to think about is justice. Okay? So this person who's been shot by a police officer, extrajudicially being out of the law, if this police officer has hidden his face, okay, and has probably used his own firearm, not the standard issue firearm, where is this person going to get justice? If you looked at the first 2 days of demonstrations, business people were supporting the demonstrators. You saw scenes of people opening up their shops as solace for people to hide from the police. You saw others on rooftops of their cafes dropping water to tear-gassed protesters.
Correct.
So you see, they were actually supporting the protest. The question of how the businesses got destroyed is what he has been talking about all along, infiltration. Okay? But the question is, who has infiltrated this particular demonstration? We can't tell for sure. Yeah? It could be politicians. Okay? It could even be government officials. It could even be the police. We don't know who has infiltrated.
Do you think,
yes,
peradventure,
yes,
that in that infiltration,
yes,
there are some bad elements who are also protesters?
Can
that be ruled out?
I tend to disagree, because when you look at the first 2 days of the demonstrations, if you saw the nature of the protesters, you could tell there was no looting, even in the face of being shot with live bullets. These people did not get into looting until now, the day they went to parliament. Okay?
Okay.
So the people looting are not the Gen Zs who came for the protests. These are people who've been sent with a nefarious mission. Who sent them, we still don't know for sure.
But you are sure they were sent?
Yeah, we do not know for sure. We don't know whether it is
Okay.
it could be businessmen, it could be politicians, it could be even the police themselves. He has said they have a clandestine nature of doing what? Mingling inside the protest.
I want him to also accept that criminal elements do not necessarily have to actually have been mobilized. I have organized demonstrations before, and sometimes I didn't know where goons came from. I'm actually a proper street person. I have been there. So when I say this, I actually know that I have seen, fairly enough, we organize very well, but somehow you find criminal elements therein. I do not think that people who came to loot, that the state wanted people to loot. So what? The state is in the business of protecting not just your lives, your affairs, but also businesses. Because this government loves to ensure that we have got a running government, or rather a running society, so that you can actually even get the taxes that people are complaining about. So why would government be doing the same? That argument is an easy one and escapist.
One curious thing was that when this was happening,
the
police were not nearby to stop. The only incident where I had looting was actually stopped was in Kitengela. In the supermarkets, where actually police intervened. But most of this time, we don't have police intervening, because it's a police.
They're stretched.
It's the police who have the mandate to protect the business people. That is their right. Okay.
Okay.
The business people also have the right on themselves to protect their own businesses. We've seen the gentleman in Mombasa who actually protected his business.
Short.
Yes. So that is a right that they have in law. Yeah.
I want us to speak to two things here.
The thing, Reverend, is that even as you try to protect looting, for example, if you look, operationally, it's impossible to stop looting without using lethal fire. And that is why a lot of times they would rather step back. We cannot act helpless. Government must take responsibility where it messes up.
So on the issue of deaths, let me give some figures that were given out by KNHCR on Tuesday.
Kenya National Commission of Human Rights.
Kenya National Commission for Human Rights. According to them, we have a total of 413 people injured. We have 59 abductions that have taken place. Some people have been found, some people have not been found, but these are verified. They have given numbers of 682 people arrested. They have given a number of 50 people dead. This was as of Tuesday. As of yesterday, I think the numbers increased by 3 of dead. As of yesterday morning, we had 121 people alone in Central Police Station. So you add to that 684. We haven't talked about the other police stations.
And is it true that there were trumped up charges?
Definitely, because in fact, most of these people, we'll get to that section of that whole aspect of accessing people's rights and how they were being handled in jail. But what I'm trying to bring out is these 59 people, these 50 people who have been reported dead by KNHCR, about 4 of them were in Parliament. These 46 people, were they in Parliament? Were these 46 people looting? Okay? That's the narrative I'm trying, and it's most of these people. We even have witnesses who have actually said these people were not anywhere near these places. We even had people who were bystanders. I mean, a 12-year-old boy sent by his mother to go buy an inhaler, to go get inhaler for her, was shot. Is it 6 times or 7 times? By police. Is that a criminal?
This particular case, I'll start with that particular point. We need to also set the state. We are on Crosstalk. Number one, there is the disputation on that particular case. Was he a 12-year-old or was he a 17-year-old? The father has actually gone to court and says there was a mix-up. That is actually out there. So initially the narrative was that he was a 12-year-old. But the father shows up and says otherwise. Even with that mix-up, still it doesn't justify why he was killed. 2, I also want to say this. Whether you are in Parliament or not, going to Parliament is not a death penalty. So saying that the 4 who are there and the others who are elsewhere, it doesn't matter wherever they were. The aspect of life, and I will still insist, for purposes of us actually having a honest conversation, probably if we are going to change this society, is to take a responsibility where there is and to say the truth. There is no reason why people who are protesting, for example, should be shot. As you speak about these numbers,
yes,
these numbers, of course, the police have failed us by not giving us a proper rundown. There should be an operational rundown so that then these guys do not run with these numbers alone. Because I'll give you a case of, I'll finish by giving you a case of Sunday.
Yes.
Let's work on Sunday. The Sunday Nation on this Sunday reported that as of that evening, they reported 11 deaths using, I'm talking about quarry incident. Let's talk about quarry incident, specifically the quarry dump site. They had retrieved 11 bodies. That was the Sunday Nation. The president was quoted saying 9 bodies. That is the president of the Republic of Kenya. So you assume he's actually been briefed by the police system. IPOA, the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, quoted 9 bodies, 7 of them women and 2 male. The police, through the acting IG himself, did a presser on Sunday, and they gave us a total count of 8 bodies, all of them female. So when you have got that kind of mix-up, do you really need to be from the police to actually say that there is an operational problem here? You don't need to.
Okay, I'm going to give him the final, brief response, and then we will take this home. We absolutely have to finish.
We are headed to a very, very scary place where police are being allowed to break the law without being held to account.
Okay.
And I think that's what we need to think about going forward.
All right, how do we pull out of there? That will be our next conversation. We want to thank you for watching Crosstalk. These are not easy conversations, but we must have them. And we must come to the place where we reclaim our country. And not just reclaim our country, sobriety, leadership, and most importantly, understanding the dynamics and giving the right solutions to the actual problems. This has been Crosstalk, where we bring the cross into the middle of the conversation and look to Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. I want to thank you, Edward, for being here. I want to thank you, Maliba, for being here. Thank you very much for your contributions. They have been very useful. Till next week, the Lord bless you, and you have a good week.